I'm excited to have Cory up today. He is the CTO of Dyn, and not only is he an amazing entrepreneur, but he is a technologist at heart who at times has had to, really challenge some of those assumptions as he's gone through to best understand how to also incorporate all of the business acumen. So he is truly one who can help you through all stages of whatever startup you're running. And without further ado, let Cory have the stage.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christina. Really appreciate Christina bringing me in here. We met last year at South by and got to really hammer home our shared views about entrepreneurship and helping folks take on the next challenge of their career. And this is really how we believe that innovation and real change can happen in our society. So we both have a strong passion for it. So thank you so much for bringing me in. Before I go into the real meat of my talk, wanted to give some background so you have some context about where I'm coming from. There's lots of folks that you'll hear from where if they don't give context, you think you could apply the whole thing wholesale to whatever you're doing. May not be true. Context is important. So my context is the background of an engineer. I was formally trained as an electrical engineer, and computer science was a passion of mine, and I always wanted to build something great. And I've had to fail 3 times with 3 different companies before I figured out how you could build a really lasting company and scale it up to the point where Dyn is today. So what does Dyn do? Dyn powers internet performance for 12% of the 500 largest websites in the world. Everyone from Twitter to HubSpot to Salesforce, on and on and on. We power their underpinning traffic management and message management of their online presence. And this is a 15-year overnight success story that has reinvented itself over and over and over again as we applied lessons that we learned previously into the next phase of our development. We got started in '98 as a nonprofit. Then we became a very slow growth for-profit. And it wasn't until we figured out our current enterprise offering and how to go to market with it and how to build a brand that we really grew from a company that was just doing a few $1 million a year of revenue into the internet powerhouse that it is today. And that's really what I'm here to talk about, because we were the group of engineers that set out to build a great company, and we tackled it with great technology. But it wasn't the technology that fundamentally enabled our success. Sales for engineers is the lesson that I wish I had before I got started building any of my companies. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. So what's the foundation of this? What is the whole thing we're here to do in building companies and solving problems and changing the world? And the fundamental equation is people are going to take money out of their wallet and put it in yours if you can alleviate their pain. That's it. That is what we are here to do. And that's what determines the winners in a market from the losers in a market. Part of the art of building a scalable high-growth company is figuring out which pain you're going to tackle. The folks that try to tackle a market technology first are the ones that run head-in into market resistance, folks that aren't ready to take on those challenges. And you could spend so much of your time building something that doesn't ever see the light of day or people never find value in. There's a famous story of an engineer who spent 10 years of his life building products that no one ever bought. Led to depression. Led to not any sense of accomplishment for what he had done to date. And his approach previously was to take 80% of his time, if he was going to allocate a year or 6 months to a project, 80% of his time was spent building whatever his idea was that he wanted to test out. 20% trying to bring it to market, getting in front of customers, building a website, so on and so forth, building up your brand, trying to sell whatever he had built. And time and time and time again, it failed. He changed his approach. Rather than spending 80% of his time trying to build something and then take it to market, he spent 80% of his time trying to prove that his idea would not work. And only once he failed to prove that it would not work did he actually build the most painful piece of it. And how he did this was through conversation with folks that actually had the pain. So show of hands here. Who has started building the technology upon which they want to build a business? Raise your hand. Nice and high. Nice and high. Very, very high. Very, very high. Higher. Higher, higher, higher. Okay, there we go. Nope, nope. Keep them up. Keep them up. Hands very high. Keep them up. I want you to put your hand down if you have talked to 10 people that have pain before you started building technology. We are all guilty of the same thing as engineers. All of us. We're guilty of search bias. We're guilty of confirmation bias. We have our own experiences in life that we found painful and that we wanted to set out into the world and change and make better. And we make the assumption that because we have the pain, someone else has the pain. Because we see the opportunity, others will see the opportunity. That is a fallacy. That is why most startups fail. Because that is a very poor assumption, but that search bias is very, very strong. Part of what I'm here to talk about is how to fight that bias and how to understand how to collect the right data and get in front of the right people to know that what you're doing isn't just something interesting that you thought of, but something people would open up their wallets, take the cash out, and put it in yours in exchange for that pain going away. That search bias, if you can control it, will be how you can build a great, great company. And one of the gentlemen documents this, wrote a great book on it, Running Lean. Now, I don't subscribe fully to any sort of manifesto or movement or anything, whether you call it agile or lean startup or whatever the case may be. But there's really good pieces in this book from an engineer's perspective that walk through how to have these conversations with early feelers of pain in a market to understand exactly what you're going to build, right? And it's such a challenge for us, you know? We're naturally introverted for the most part as technical folks. It's such a challenge to be able to kick up those conversations. There's a fear of rejection. What if they say no? Well, you know what happens when they say no? You go on to the next person. It doesn't mean anything. But the lesson that you'll learn in talking to them and understanding their pain is going to be valuable for how you build your business. So the question becomes, how do you do this? How do you ask this question? Well, whatever market you're thinking of or whatever area that you're thinking of tackling, find people that are currently in that are doing something in a way that you want to change, right? And you could break it down into a couple categories. Maybe you're trying to fight for something's inefficient about what they're doing. You can automate it, right? Maybe they're leaving revenue on the table, right? There's an opportunity that you can go after and help them make more money, right? The harsh reality is those are really the only two things you can do. Anything else, if it doesn't fit into one of those buckets, better figure out how to fit it into one of those buckets. Because otherwise, what you're doing is you're competing for money that's not currently being spent today. And when someone looks at the $1 that they have on the table that represents the entirety of their budget, whether it's personal or professional, they're making a judgment call every single day of how to allocate that dollar. And what you want to suss out is if the pain that you're seeking to solve will compete effectively for a portion of that dollar. Most ideas will not compete effectively for the portion of that dollar. Why? Because it's not painful enough. It's not on their priority stack of things to solve, whether that's to buy or tackle themselves. So how do you find this out? How do you find out if something is painful enough to solve? Very, very simple question. Call up people in the field. Ask them, what's the most painful thing you have to do tomorrow? What's the thing that you least look forward to doing? And sit there and shut up. Just let them talk. Let them tell you stories and anecdotes from their perspective of what it's like to live in their shoes and work in their shoes and face the challenges that they have. And maybe you'll find something in there that's a nugget of what you were looking to tackle. Maybe you won't, right? You keep these conversations going. You keep listening. When you find that nugget, you ask a next very important question. All right, that pain that you just described to me, I'm thinking of solving that as a business. A year from now, will that pain be bigger or smaller? What do you want it to be? Bigger. There's a big reason why, right? When you tackle pain points that aren't growing over time, you are fighting an uphill battle, right? There's a lot of people that are going to compete for those dollars. There's a lot of people that are going to compete for mind share and attention. The most beneficial thing you can do to your business is make sure that you have a macro trend that you can ride. The way I provide it as an analogy in our business is we're looking for wind in our sails. What's something that even if we screwed up 5 different things really, really badly, we'll still be successful? Because the pain is that strong, growing that quickly, that even though we might make a couple mistakes along the way, we as a whole continue to survive, right? For us, right, we solve internet performance. We have a number of macro trends, and at the basic, like the most basic level, we run DNS servers, if you really wanted to get down to it, right? You type in twitter.com, we're the ones that do the lookup to make sure you connect to Twitter's infrastructure. That names the numbers lookup. People never used to pay for this stuff, ever, right? And now we've built a massive business around it because there's been macro trends to drive it, and we've made a ton of mistakes along the way. Number one macro trend, the internet continues to get bigger. It continues to connect to more people and more geographies, and more bandwidth is deployed, right? That will continue. Next macro trend, operating these large-scale systems like a Twitter, like a HubSpot, like a Salesforce, continues to get more complicated the bigger it gets. And it's harder and harder to attract talent that is deeply experienced in solving these big-scale problems. And number three, the things that we solve become a distraction to the business. If folks are spending their time and energy running DNS servers inside a company, they're not contributing to core competitive advantage of that business. And a macro trend is more over time, more folks will take resources from what is contextual to the business, what is not supporting core innovation, and they'll allocate that to innovative activities, right? Meaning they'll outsource, basically. So those are the three macro trends that we drive. The internet continues to get bigger. As things on the internet get bigger, they get more complicated, and you need more expertise, and it's really hard to hire that. And then the final one. So that's the wind in our sails that we're looking for. So, but let's go back to the first sale, right? So let's say we've had these pain conversations. Let's say you've talked to 10 people. Ideally, 100 is the right number. But let's say you've at least talked to 10 people and you understand where this fits on their pain scale. You understand how they're solving this problem today, right? You understand what your value prop is going to be. What do I mean by that? Well, are you going to save them money or are you going to make them money? Which of those is it? Because that's really all you can do that's going to capture their attention. And you have an inkling that you want to start building something and try this out and start getting your first sale. How do you choose that first customer that you want to bring on board, right? You're looking for a combination of two things. You're looking for one, of all the folks that you talk to that describe the pain that they're going through, who had it the strongest? Rather than the person who listed it as like number 4 or 5 that they had to face tomorrow, they listed it as number 1. That's who has the most pain of who you're talking to. Combine that with, who do you know has an innovative and early adoption mentality? Who's familiar with the book Crossing the Chasm? All right. There's a very, very important philosophy here for why folks need to tackle certain segments of the market than others. And it comes down to who's willing to take a risk on you. You have zero credibility. Zero. None. You haven't solved anyone's problem yet. No one can say, I worked with them, they made my pain go away, and you should use them too. But that is ultimately what you're looking for. You're looking for that credibility, that success story, that use case, that reference, the person that gives you feedback that says what you're doing is indeed valuable and will recommend it to their friends, right? Well, how do you do that? How do you do that? Well, there's 2 angles we're going to look at. One is who you look at as a market in a whole, and then who you really specifically look at in that market. So let's talk a little bit about the chasm. Jeffrey Moore book, fantastic. It really defined how product managers do their job for the last 15, 20 years. Phenomenal read. But the core premise of the book is you have different stages in the technology adoption lifecycle that represent different numbers of customers. And the bulk of the money is really over here, right? But these are the folks that have the mentality of you never get fired for choosing IBM. What does that mean? You never get fired for choosing IBM.
It's always safe to go with the big guy?
It's always safe. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for outsized returns. They're not looking for innovative solutions. They're looking for what's safe. Is someone looking for what's safe going to take a risk on you? Absolutely not. Put these people out of your mind for 5 years. Depending on your venture, maybe it's 1, maybe it's 3, maybe it's 10. It depends. Different markets move at different speeds. But put those people out of your mind. This side, these are the risk takers. These are the folks that see if I can bring in something that does it a little bit differently than everyone else, I'll get an outsized return that beats whatever other offering I was going to do, either doing it myself, building it myself, going with competitor A, competitor B. They'll believe in the vision that you're painting for the future and why this could be better, even though it doesn't truly exist today, right? They'll also believe in you because they're more likely to understand you personally. What's your credibility? Not your company, not your idea, not your market, but you, John, Chris, Tony, Jamie, whatever, like you personally. They'll get to know you and they'll map your personal credibility and how you interact and how you listen to them and make judgment calls about how to trust your business. They'll get to know you as people. These are the folks you need to talk to. Now, for the most part, these are smaller companies. That's not, that would be a gross generalization. There are pockets of innovative teams that are in larger companies. But for the most part, you'll find this mentality in smaller companies. Why? Because they're entrepreneurs just like you. And they understand the risk. And they're willing to take it because they want that outsized return, right? So what exists here, right? Most of this book goes into, this is the area that most technical companies die in. Because while they can prove among early adopters and risk takers that this is a good thing to do, there's not enough credibility for folks that are willing to take less risky bets to make any bet at all on you. That's the chasm. That's the part that's hard to cross. And so even in your search bias, you might find engineers that are like-minded to you that might have the same pain that you faced. If that's all you collected your data on, you'll never be able to cross the chasm. You'll just walk search bias into the chasm, finding like-minded people that also see the world the same way, but won't actually take big bets on you over here. It's the pain you need to understand here, but you need to start solving it here, right? And then we'll go into how you can actually bridge this gap. Let me tell a story about how we failed here initially. So, company reinvented itself time and time and time again, right? It was about 2007. Anyone ever heard of Dyn DNS? That was us, right? So we started as the nonprofit that was dynamicdns.org, dyndns.org, right? We did remote access. You typed in tony.dyndns.org, we mapped you to your home computer. We had a number of folks that were using our platform for anything but remote access or consumery, prosumer use cases. They were using it to run their business. There were great folks like Subway and British Telecom, and even Twitter got started on our platform. 2006. We saw that and we said, wow, people are coming to us with real business use cases. Why don't we build a business class technology and we can sell that to them for a premium? So we built it because we're engineers. That's what we do. We build things. So we built what we called Dynact. It was the first generation of our enterprise-grade technology. And just like we had built up our consumer-based business that had a few million members in it, excuse me, and about 200,000 or so paid us at the time, we used the same go-to-market strategy. Well, let's put up an order form and they'll come and they'll order it, right? No, no one ordered it. This was the web page that we had. It was set up exactly the same way like our other ones. Here, learn about the product, you can get a trial, and then please buy it. Here's the shopping cart. No one bought it. We didn't really understand the buyer. We didn't really understand the type of relationship that they were looking to have with us. That's what we had to go back to the drawing board and really understand. Everything that we had known as a company was what I would call a self-service relationship. Someone came to the website, someone signed up. You never talked to them. They just bought it and went on their merry way, and hopefully they told their friends, and that's how we grew, right? But now we had built something that was enterprise grade, and people weren't buying it. So we had to take a step back. And we had to understand what these people were actually looking for. They weren't looking to buy a protocol or a service. They were looking to buy a relationship with someone that they could trust to run that piece of their business so they could go back to building core competitive advantage. Twitter didn't want to sit there building a bunch of DNS servers. Twitter wanted to build a great messaging platform that would disrupt media and news. Any resources, any mind share, any thought being expended on anything but that was holding the company back. But they also didn't want to go out and spend $10 million to deploy a ton of infrastructure around the world in case they might become successful. Not only did they need someone they could trust, they needed to pay for just what they were consuming today in that service. But as they needed more, they could trust that provider to provide it for them without them having to go re-architect or deploy hardware or slow everything down. That's what we provided them, right? And we didn't provide that through a self-service relationship. We provided that through an inside sales relationship. We got to know them. We got to understand them. I'll break down these categories in a minute, what's the difference. But the core point is we had to understand what pain they were really trying to solve. And while they were willing to take a risk on us, we also had to make sure that we understood what they were really concerned about, and damn sure we delivered on it, right? And that's how we still have them as a client today, because of that relationship, right? And because we continue to rise to the occasion whenever they have a challenge, we're the first ones by their side to give them a hand. Right? That's what they were buying from us, that trust and confidence. Right? So it was clear that we had chosen the wrong go-to-market channel for our product. So what is the right one for you? Well, different markets have different channels that work different ways. Self-service, they're coming to your website, they're buying it, and they're going away. For the most part, this looks like any kind of freemium offering, right? A Evernote, a Dropbox, so on and so forth. Right? Really great for consumer. Trouble is it takes a ton of cash because you have to build it all. It has to be perfect before they see it. Because when you release something that's not perfect to a wide market, it only takes one bad opinion to spread like wildfire. Right? So we'll talk about that in a moment in terms of how we isolate and segment and find out the niches that we go after. Inside sales, what is this? This is people that are calling you, wanting to learn more, have a pain point. They know of your brand, they're a lead, and they want to understand how you can solve that for them. But there's an ongoing conversation. There's a back and forth. There's an understanding what they're really going after and how your technology can help make that pain go away. Outside sales is a different ballgame. This is where you literally pick up your bag, you get on a plane, you go to someone. They didn't come to you. You go to them, and you tell them how you can help. Right? Very different skill sets for those things. And the final one, channel and partner, strict this from your memory. Period. No partnerships. Partnerships, I'm not even going to use the term, but it's, I have a bad way to phrase this. I'll come up with a more PC one.
Don't worry, we're not PC here.
All right. Partnerships are the biggest waste of time to any early stage venture. Because you might see, oh, look at this big company, tons of users. We can help them do X. They don't give a shit about you. They don't give a shit, right? And they will distract you. They will steal your ideas. They will slow you down. And the only thing that matters in the early stage of your company is solving pain for people. And you're thinking, well, maybe that partnership will give me the credibility to get in front of people. Maybe it'll give them the credibility so they can trust me. Maybe it'll give me access to customers. No, it will not. It will only slow you down. So let's talk about how you actually do that. All right? So you found someone that had a ton of pain. You found someone that you can work with, that trusts you, believes in you as a person. They were your first sale, right? And maybe you haven't even built anything yet. Maybe whatever pain point that they had, you're solving manually so that you can better understand their business. That's part of what that running lean concept is about. Because if you can solve a pain for someone manually, then you really understand what you need to build. Right? So let's say that they're happy, and it doesn't matter if you built technology or not, but they're happy with what you did, and they continue to support that relationship. They continue to take money out of their wallet and put it in yours. How do you get the next end sales? That success begets your future successes. That first person that trusted you and loved you and shouted you from the rooftops will be your key to get every other sale from then on. But in order to do that, a message from one person in one company in one market does not carry equal weight in all other markets and all other companies. So there's an art to this. The term niche is used a lot. What does it mean? Seth Godin has a great concept of tribes. Tribes are people that think alike and kind of tend to move together and share ideas amongst each other and are willing to trust each other in how they evolve their businesses or their lives or whatever. It's a group of affiliated folks that are open to sharing each other's ideas and trust when something new comes into that circle, right? Who here uses an Apple computer? Who does not use an Apple computer? All right, hands back down. Who hates Apple? Who loves Apple? All right. Who loves the Mini Cooper? Who hates the Mini Cooper? All right, Apple was a better. Oh, they got one. Okay, good. All right. If you try to build something or message something or try to communicate in a way that you think will meet everyone's needs, by definition, you will meet no one's needs. And no one will pay any attention to you. You have to explicitly choose the line that you're going to draw in the market of who you want to love you and who you want to hate you. If you refuse to draw that line, no one will ever love you. And if no one ever loves you, no one will take a risk on you. And if no one will take a risk on you, you'll never get your first success. And if you never get your first success, you'll never turn that into future successes. So you have to carve out your niche. What is the piece of the market that you can find some commonality in? And solving their pain is most important in the world. And you have the conviction to say, anyone else's pain doesn't matter to us right now. That polarizing concept, being able to divide the love and the hate, means people care. And that caring is what will let them take a risk on you. So how do you do that? Well, it goes back to talking through who has the pain. The folks that have the most pain are willing to take that gamble. Now look at what industries they're in. What tribes do they belong to? For us, building Dyn, we came up and matured about the time there was a cultural and professional movement going through the IT community called DevOps, where people were challenging the status quo of how an engineering organization should work with an IT function or an operations function with an organization, and shifting the strong walls that existed professionally between those two orgs, and instead having them lock arm in arm and move forward together. Shared outcome, right? They succeed or fail together, right? A very, very strong movement. We happen to believe in that movement. And it also happened that the people that believed in that movement were some of our early customers. That became our early tribe. The folks that when we won one of their, the confidence of one, that helped us earn the confidence of the next, right? There's the follow-up book to Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. It's called Inside the Tornado. The concept here is how you actually cross that chasm, how you take that first success and leverage it into your next one. That niche concept, that polarizing, think of it almost as a bowling alley, right? That first pin in the bowling alley, in the lane, is the company that had the strongest pain point. The one that you were able to win over emphatically, that now shouts your name from the rooftops and is happy to recommend you to anyone that they know, right? That tribe that they belong to, who are they, right? Who are the people in their inner circle? Maybe it's by industry, maybe it's by conference that they travel to, maybe it's by vertical, maybe it's by technologies they adopt in the company. It could be anything, right? But what is that circle? What defines them? Your goal is to become the market leader for a small enough sized market that you could actually claim you're the market leader. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, right? But that's where the confidence comes from. It comes from the definition of a market leader. But you don't have to own the entire market of billions and billions and billions of revenue. You can own one tiny piece that might be worth 100 grand a year. Maybe it's worth 100 million a year. Maybe it's worth one. Doesn't matter. But you can carve it out, and you could say, we own that. If you have this problem here, use us. For us, getting started with an enterprise offering, this was the Web 2.0 and software as a service space. Folks that needed to grow their businesses very, very quickly and didn't want to be held up by deploying tons of infrastructure that wasn't their core competency to operate, the DNS networks, right? We gained the early confidence of a number of folks there. And once we could say we were the market leader in Web 2.0 and SaaS, not only did we have a foundation of loyal, emphatic customers to go back to that we can count on for revenue, every single one that we knocked down in that circle that we got as a very happy customer made it that much easier to get the next one in that circle. You can see where this is going. The goal here is to build up that critical mass of emphatic supporters in some niche, as small as you can define it so it's realistic that you can own it as the leader. And then use the credibility you've earned there to get your first success in an adjacent niche. Because someone who might be in an adjacent space, for us it was ad and media, right? Media websites like CNBC and ad networks and so on and so forth. If we had just gone to them without any credibility anywhere in the market, would they listen to us? Would they trust their business to us? Probably not. But we had a relationship with great companies like 37 Signals and Twitter from our early days of being a 10-person company. And we were able to leverage those stories not only to win that, but once we had critical mass here, we could then go to folks like a CNBC and say, what pain can we solve for you? Look what we've done for the Web 2.0 and SaaS space. We think some of the pains here, we can help. Now the trick is, they're probably interested in different things. How can you take the same technology and solve a slightly different problem, right? For these guys, it was all about speed. Speed of deployment of infrastructure, not having to pay attention to deploying themselves, trust that it was just going to work, and just being able to focus on building a very fast growth SaaS or Web 2.0 company, right? Social media, so on and so forth. These guys, the pitch wasn't so much about speed in ad and media. That was kind of important. They were more interested in the performance of page loads that we could do for them. Not just because making a web page faster is great, it is, but they can directly correlate that performance improvement to a page load to how likely someone is to click on an ad, right? The faster the ad loads, the more likely someone is to click on it. Or conversely, the slower it loads, the less likely someone is to click on it. But there becomes a point where you reach this kind of peak bang for the buck, right? Where it's not really worth investing in a ton of additional performance. It costs grossly more to be able to tackle that problem. So we made a different argument. Well, maybe once you reach that kind of optimum bang for the buck performance of how quickly these ads render on the page, what if we could make them render faster, right? Take less time to serve them over the network and connect the users to that infrastructure. In that time savings, rather than just giving it to the user, because they wouldn't really value it, what if you use that time savings to figure out a better ad to show? What if that could take you through 2 or 3 more levels of a recursive algorithm that could better target that ad to that user? Still render it at the same time you were going to before, the optimum bang for the buck. But with that time saving, show a more targeted ad. That directly correlated to revenue for them. That is what they were willing to take a gamble on. Great. Now we have a banner client here. Now we can go and shout to the rooftops in the ad media space, hey, if you need more time in your back-end algorithms to be able to show better targeted ads to users, we're a great way to solve that pain for you. Same technology, same implementation, different value, right?
How did you figure out the different value proposition for that particular customer base when you were going in feeling like you knew how you were solving the problem with the existing technology?
Ask them what's painful. It goes back to that. You have to step outside of your comfort zone as an engineer, be willing to not make assumptions about what pain other folks are facing, and ask them. Like, what's the worst case? They hang up the phone? Who cares, right? What's the best case? They tell you exactly what you need to do to win your business? Well, sign me up. That sounds like a pretty good risk that I'm willing to take. But those conversations led to that messaging, led to us being able to solve that. And now the credibility there lets us tackle yet another adjacent space, e-commerce sites. Different value proposition. E-commerce is about revenue assurance. Billions of dollars flowing through web properties. Yes, it's great to be fast. Yes, it's great to be agile. But you know what's not great? That revenue going down. And they can correlate down to the second what downtime costs them. So it's about reliability. and it's about performance, right? So a message around there. And our credibility that we gained in helping out the Web 2.0 SaaS space and the ad media space let us tackle the e-commerce space. You can see how this plays out. Adjacent market, adjacent market, adjacent market. Eventually, you become the world leader in the market as a whole when you continue to knock down pin by pin by pin by pin. So that's how you systematically do this, right? And you're not really changing your technology a ton under the hood. Maybe there's a couple features here and there, but you're looking, this is a messaging thing. This is a conversation thing. This is how you explain your value proposition to customers. Not really changing the technology under the hood. It will evolve as you learn lessons, but you're looking for a common technology, a common solution that can solve a market as a whole. This is just how you approach it, step by step by step by step. And it can be very easy to just chase the revenue. You know, what might look like an easy customer to win. But if it sits far outside of this, you know, that's going to consume some of your resources and some of your attention to be able to go service that customer that might be an entirely adjacent, like too far away from what you're looking to tackle now. And you have to make a judgment call. Could that be a future flagship success that we could leverage in that market? Or is that a distraction for us now? And we're better served continuing to find critical mass in this section before we distract ourselves and go look elsewhere. It takes conviction to manage that too. Right? That conviction piece is very important. So you have this concept of being able to understand the pain, being able to stack rank the pain, understand priorities of what's painful, what's not painful. Your first customer, whoever had that most pain and was an early adopter mentality, becomes your first success. You identify who's adjacent to that success and leverage them as reference. Talk to their friends, talk to their tribe, get involved in their tribe, help them out. You leverage that tribe success to then tackle new tribes, new segments, new niches, and eventually you can own a market. But what you have to be doing along the way is thinking about how you can make that messaging scalable. Because no one's going to trust anyone in the company any more than you, the founder. So how do you take the embodiment of you and what you believe in and what you stand for and what's different about your company than everyone else and make that a message that everyone can understand and everyone can get behind and amplify the effect that you bring to the table in talking to customers? That's the power of your brand. So as you're doing this, you're thinking through, what do we stand for? What's different about us? And how do we want to communicate it? For us, we ran internet plumbing. Like literally, it's like the equivalent of the electricity to these light bulbs. As long as the power was on, who cared who provided the electricity? Even if I went to people and said, well, I could save you 5% of your electricity bill. Who cares if it takes me 5 months to switch and I'm distracted from everything else I want to do, right? That wasn't a motivator for them. So in order to capture their attention, we had to think very differently. I remember there was one of our first trade shows we ever did. And this is, again, engineers trying to figure this stuff out. This is Kyle York, one of my best friends, lives around the corner from me now. He's our chief revenue officer. You know, I credit with him for helping to shepherd the creation of our brand and the messaging out into the market, right? One of our first trade shows that we tried to do, we had 2 t-shirts that we were putting out there. One was Tweet Nerdy to Me. The other was DNS is sexy. We thought for certain Tweet Nerdy to Me was going to take off like wildfire, right? This is 2008. Twitter is all the rage. We're supporting them. We loved it. Everyone's building their social media clout, so on and so forth. I think we printed like 500 of each of those t-shirts. We went home with like 462 of the Tweet Nerdy to Me ones, right? But we sold out of the DNS is sexy in like the first hour of that trade show. Why? Because we were the first company in a very, very long time taking a multi-decade-old protocol and industry and talking to it differently and making it fun again and making it less about just what the technical implementation was of the protocol and more the trust and confidence and relationship in helping people build great businesses. That's what DNS is sexy stood for. And that's what helped us stand out from everyone else. When everyone else in the market was focused purely on the enterprise sale, purely on how to get more renewal from customers or how to just get that next deal, right? Or how to hit their numbers, we concerned ourselves, yeah, we wanted to grow. We wanted great numbers. But more importantly, we wanted relationships. Relationships that would help us get future numbers and service those relationships. And we've made a lot of mistakes along the way in how we organize ourselves, our processes, different products, lots of mistakes. But we always had macro trends putting wind in our sails. And the growth of the market and our ability to have a differentiating brand and to stand out from everyone else that was trying to tackle this space, that fueled our success. And though that covered up for a lot of our own sins, and a lot of our own missteps, and a lot of our own mistakes. Without that macro trend, I don't know if we would have succeeded. I don't know if anyone can truly succeed in building a billion-dollar company without those macro trends behind them, right? Or how can you succeed to run the internet if you don't have those macro trends behind you? Well, that's now our ambition, right? And that's what we set out to do. And so you have to figure out ways to embody that message. Take that personality that's unique to you and put it in there. Another example. This isn't just something the executives do. All of our employees embrace this concept. These are superheroes of Dine. This is John D'Amato. John D'Amato, his superpower was being able to juggle 10 things at once, and the joke was his beard let him do it. Right? So we made him a focus of it. Laura Swanson, who now leads the mobile team at Etsy, but at the time was helping us rethink how we tackled our web experience. She would come in and bake cookies for folks to congratulate them on a job well done. Completely unrelated to her team. So we celebrated that. And we told our clients about that. That was a real story of someone that cares so much about what we were doing and has that passion in our grander mission that she took that on herself, right? We just helped amplify that story. Or we have Steve Wheeler, our director of deliverability. If anyone's familiar with the Dos Equis ad, most interesting man in the world, well, this is the most reputable sender in the world. The resemblance helped, right? But we took what was previously a very stodgy industry where folks would just say, hey, download our white paper. Hey, come in our trade show booth. Let me scan your badge, right? And we threw all that out the window. And we made it more about the relationship, the personality. And we built a brand that people could get behind and support and understood and was personable to them. And it was very, very different from core plumbing of the internet. That brand is what we now leverage today. So let today be your first step to doing that. Let today be the first step towards your dent in the universe and how you're going to tackle it. Find that one customer that has the most pain, make them emphatically love you, and leverage their success. And stop writing code until you do. Thank you.